Welcome to episode 5 of the Clinch Fight podcast. I'm Michael O'Donnell, and I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host, Mr. Josh Hurst. Josh, how are you, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate. Looking forward to get this one out.
Definitely. I've been looking forward to putting this one out since we haven't done one for a couple of weeks. We haven't done an episode for a couple of weeks. We're going to touch on a few big cards that happened recently. In our last episode, we spoke about Dillian Whyte and Povetkin. What did you think of that fight, Josh? How did you think?
I think it's kind of what we both had in mind. I think Povetkin probably didn't look as good as he did last time, but, Whyte said he's coming out for maximum violence, and, he did that. He come out probably more reckless than last time, just looking for his head. So good win for Whyte, and nice to see him back in the picture and just sort of put that to bed now, I think.
Yeah, what I really liked about Whyte's performance was as well, there wasn't kind of those inner demons that he didn't take a backward step at all, did he? He wasn't fazed by the fact that he got knocked out cold in that first fight. He just went again for it, carried on where he left off, and fair play to him. He did get the job done. However, Povetkin just wasn't with it really. I didn't think. He wasn't all there, was he?
He looked a bit of a shadow of himself, didn't he? Again, some people were speculating about, how the COVID affected him, because obviously he had to pull out the first time because he was still feeling it. So I'm not sure if that's was the main factor in it, or whether it was just, he hasn't got the heart left. But yeah, he didn't look like he wanted to be in there after he got clubbed a few times, did he?
No, I mean, like, Povetkin still kind of looked dangerous, but he just didn't recover from that first round, did he? And it was quite a weird first round, like that little wobble he had.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he was maybe he was a bit taken back. The Whyte just came back, even in faster gear than he did last time. Whyte showed no respect considering he got knocked out cold the previous fight. So I don't know, maybe it was that. But yeah, either way, he just seemed a bit slower, a bit more sluggish than he normally is. So
definitely, I think as a Brit, I was really happy for Whyte, and I'm glad to see him kind of cement himself once again as kind of arguably that top boxer outside that big three of Wilder, Joshua and Fury, which is really good to see.
Yeah, I got a lot of time for Whyte as well. He just comes to fight at the end of the day. Even how he came out to fight Povetkin, you don't see it very often. Some people might take it slow there. So yeah, got a soft spot for Whyte.
What would you like to see from Dillian Whyte next, Josh?
Again, just sort of what we were talking about last time. It's hard for him where he goes now, but I would like to see him maybe fight Wilder. Or, if Fury and Joshua are going to be tied up, that would be my fight of choice probably. But, I just want to see him keep busy. So even if it's a fight in the States against someone else, as long as he keeps busy and, stays in form, I'll be happy for him.
Yeah, I think for Whyte, I'd like to see him fight another legit opponent. I don't really want to see him fight a B-level fighter, if that makes sense. I'd like to see him against someone in the Ring Magazine ranking again. But to be fair, he's fought so many of those guys in those rankings. It'll be a hard one unless it's one of the big, the big three.
Yeah, he's running out. He's running out of opposition, so be interesting.
Definitely. What do you think about Povetkin? Does he retire now? Is that it for him?
I think that's it for Povetkin. There's always going to be a fight for him because he's going to be that gatekeeper now, isn't he? So same way Molina was to Wardley, that sort of, they're just there to get a name on your record. He's probably got a fight left in him, but I can't see his sort of winning mentality being there anymore. If he was to fight, it might just be a payday for him.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to see Povetkin kind of go down that road and, like you said, become like an Eric Molina-esque fighter. I think he's had a great career. I just don't want him to become a gatekeeper, really. I think he's, you could argue there's different gatekeepers in previous episodes we've done in, but, there could be, there's like world level gatekeepers, world title shot gatekeepers. I think he's been there and done it. He rolled the dice one more time against Dillian Whyte. Call it a day now. You made good money. That's it.
100%, I agree. And by the looks of it, looks like they made a decent purse, so hopefully that might be the end for him.
We're going to move on to another fight that happened, I believe it was the weekend before, the one that's just gone, was Carl Frampton versus Jamel Herring. I was quite gutted about this. I'm a big Carl Frampton fan. I wouldn't say I followed him from day one, but since his European title days, it's been quite a while, a good part of the last 7 years or whatever it's been. What did you think of that fight, Josh, the Herring-Frampton?
Same with you, really. It was a bit hard to watch. I think personally, just the size, even when they were just face straight off, I already thought, oh God, he's got a hard night coming. But like you said, Frampton is probably of our generation anyway, an iconic British fighter. So again, I didn't watch him from his first days, but him fighting is probably that's what I remember from first watching boxing, sort of on a British level and following fighters like that. So it's not nice to see him go out the way he did, but I'm just glad that he's okay, I suppose.
I mean, like Frampton, he's given us so many good nights, especially his, to Britain and Ireland, the Kiko Martinez, both of those fights, especially that first one. He looked really good in that European title fight against Martinez. The Leo Santa Cruz, 2 of those fights. Scott Quigg.
Yeah, definitely.
Josh Warrington, even though he lost that fight, what a fight that was. That was fight of the year. Fantastic. What next? Well, obviously, we know that Frampton has officially retired now, which was sad to see him go out like that, as we've previously stated. However, let's not discredit Jamal Herring here. Like, in previous performances I have seen Jamal Herring, I've never seen him personally look as good as that.
Yeah. It seemed like he got caught a few times, but for the most part, it didn't seem like he even got out of... He had another gear to go, I thought, as well. The shots that he was hitting Frampton with weren't necessarily big, loading up power punches. It was just sharp, long punches and just using his reach. So, and like I said, he does look huge at that weight. So I'm sure coming against other people in that sort of in that weight category, he's going to be a problem. You could argue maybe he's still on the way out, just age-wise, but he's still got big fights. It's a stacked division, that and the lightweight division. So it'd be interesting to see where he goes next.
Yeah, there were many factors, I think, why Frampton lost that fight. One, obviously, he's probably aged a bit now. He's past his prime, let's face it. 2, probably one weight class too many, I think. Yeah. Like you said, like Herring just looked massive compared to Frampton. And Herring looks too big for super featherweight, let alone Carl Frampton. And, he's a southpaw. He's tall.
Yeah.
And do you know what? He just looked better than Frampton. His skill set was beyond Frampton's. I personally believe.
Yeah, agreed. I think it was just all a bit wrong for Frampton on the night, and I do think it seemed like he started to get a bit of success in the mid rounds, but then I think he just took a bit too long to get. I think he had to come out and really give it to him. He was taking too many shots to start off with. So again, it's always going to be a hard fight with Frampton because he's just he's just a hard guy and he's just going to keep coming forward. So I'm glad that he got stopped by his corner because I can imagine him fighting until he's unconscious, really. So,
yeah, definitely. That was only going to end one way. And like you said, the only way Frampton was going to get any success was to close that distance down, take punches to land his own. And against Herring, that proved to be way too dangerous. And
yeah, definitely.
I got to second that. I'm so glad his corner pulled him out because that was leading to a very vicious and violent KO for sure. What next for Jamal Herring, do you think, Josh? It's interesting where he goes from here. Yeah,
like I said, it's quite a stacked division. Like I said, he's big at the weight. Does he want to go for a super fight for one of the guys at lightweight? They got that four kings scenario going on at lightweight now. They got Gervonta Davis at super feather. It's crazy. So I think there's a lot of big fights there for him. But I do think, like I said, I do think he's coming towards the end now. So I think he'll want to be in the big fights to get whatever he's got left. Give them to that, sorry.
Yeah, for me, with Jamal Herring's next opponent, there's 2 scenarios. Obviously, there's the interim WBO title fight between Shakur Stevenson and, forgive me for my pronunciation, Jeremiah Nakafila. They're contesting for the WBO interim title, so the winner of that will be the mandatory for Jamal Herring's title. Most likely, probably Shakur Stevenson will come through that, which is a really tough fight for Jamal Herring. However, my other scenario is, if, as a WBO champion, if Herring was to move up to lightweight, he will be mandatory for Teofimo Lopez, which will make him more money. Not sure how interested Lopez will be to take that fight. Obviously, he's the undisputed champion, so how long he'll have to wait for that mandatory, because obviously he's got 4 other belts he holds.
Yeah,
that's another question. So I think they're the 2 scenarios, considering that Lopez is promoted by Top Rank and so Shakur Stevenson. So I think one of those guys will probably be next. However, as we've previously stated, Jamal Herring is a big super featherweight. So is he going to want to stick around to fight? Is he going to want to stick around to fight Shakur Stevenson, where he's going to probably be a disadvantage with the weight and probably a fighter who is just as good as he is, if not better? Be interesting. I am looking forward to see where Jamel Herring goes.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's move on to Conor Benn versus Samuel Vargas. That was a big breakthrough win for Conor Benn. What did you think of that fight, Josh?
Well, like I say, I was messaging you the first round, thinking, what the hell is going on? Not what I expected at all. You know, don't get me wrong, I did expect him to come out and look sharp, because like he normally does. But to get rid of someone like Vargas, you know, not that he's a super amazing on for his chin. For him to get him out there in the first round and the way he did is unreal, and really big statement made to the welterweight scene, I think.
Yeah, it was a big statement, because you've seen other world-class fighters who are above Conor Benn not struggle against Samuel Vargas, but they've taken longer to get him out of there. The likes of Danny Garcia, Errol Spence, Amir Khan. Amir Khan had, well, I wouldn't see loads of problems with Vargas, but he did get knocked down. And
of course,
when Khan gets hurt, you know, he gets hurt pretty badly.
Yeah.
But it was really impressive from Conor Benn. My only issue with the fight, the result afterwards, I think I'm not quite sure if that win against Samuel Vargas really catapults him to that world level just yet, because ultimately Sam Vargas is a gatekeeper, nothing else. He's never had a massive win. Every time he stepped up to that A category, he's fallen short. So I'm not quite sure if it's the benchmark that Matchroom and other people in the business are really trying to make out. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, Eddie Hearn's not stupid, is he? I think that's a big criticism Ben always tends to get, is that, you know, even though on paper he's had some good opponents, in reality he's taken a very strange route to where he sort of is with the rankings, because, you know, he skipped through the British title, he skipped through European, because a lot of people are putting him on that fringe world level sort of category now. So I agree with you there.
Yeah, I think the comments as well were a bit strange, because he kind of made out that, you know, you give me all these tests and I've come through them with these, basically making out he's above that British level, where there are some good fighters at British level. You've got the likes of McKinson, you've got Chris Congo, you've got Chris Jenkins, really good fighters. But I mean, based on his performance as Vargas in a one-round blowout, you could argue that he is beyond that. He is above that level. However, if you are truly above that level, there's a beast from the East called David Avanesian. Why don't you put your money where your mouth is and take on him? What do you think of that fight, Josh?
Yeah, I think that's for the, you know, people who've been watching the boxing, especially recently with the sort of Kelly fight. That's a dream fight, but it's one of them. In reality, how many people know who David Avanesian is, especially before the Kelly fight? So again, Eddie Hearn's not stupid. I personally would love to see that fight, because that would really cement where Ben is. You know, if he can beat Avanesian, you know, you can say goodbye to all the doubts about where he's at domestic and European level, because in reality, Avanesian is probably good enough to challenge for a title again now as well. So, that's a dream fight, but I won't be surprised if I can't see that being the next one. Maybe down the line, but I don't think it'll be the next one, sadly.
Yeah, I think Conor Benn has all the ingredients of being probably the next pay-per-view star for Matchroom. Mm-hmm. And I think putting him in against with Avanesian next, although he'd probably believe he'd win that fight as a fighter, that's just kind of feeding your lamb to the slaughter, really. Your golden goose straight away, getting him a loss early, potentially. And I think Avanesian is probably the favourite if you put them in with him now. And like you said, if I was to put Avanesian against one of the champs like Crawford or Spence, not saying he'd win those fights, but I think he'd definitely give a good account of himself for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, we're going to move on to the final fights that we're going to reflect on from the last couple of weeks. The WBO Light Heavyweight Championship between Joe Smith Jr. and Maxim Vlasov. What do you think of that fight, Josh? That was a bit of a bloody tear-up, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a right tear-up. I only managed to catch the highlights, but even just looking at Smith after, and he looked like he had the fight beaten out of him. You know, he got the win, but I was watching an interview and he's saying that he said, I had to just find a way to get through that last round, because you could tell they were blowing it. So fair play. That's how a world title fight should be, I think.
Yeah, I rewatched that fight, and it was probably one of the hardest fights I've ever had to score. Like, honestly, like Vlasov looked fresher towards the end of the fight. He looked maybe worked a bit harder, but Joe Smith really grinded it out, and it was kind of like a punch for punch kind of contest. Like the rounds were so close, it was ridiculous. But I thought Vlasov looked like he had more in the tank, but I wouldn't have argued either way. I think both guys gave everything, gave the fans everything. Couldn't have put in a bigger effort than they did, and I think the right winner got it. But again, like I said, if Vlasov got it, I wouldn't have argued either way.
Yeah, I do think Joseph Jr. is a bit of a people's champ as well, and he's just he's very much a regular guy. You know, when he beat Bernard Hopkins, there's the funny story. He just went back to his construction job the day after. So I think you got a potential like real likable guy. Now a world champion, so it'd be interesting to see where he goes. Yeah,
Joe Smith Jr. reminds me of a light heavyweight Arturo Gatti, like really good to watch, and the fans just love him because every fight he's going to be in, he might get outclassed like he did against Dimitri Bivol, but he's going to give everything to try and win that fight, even if he gets knocked out, and that's what people love, and people appreciate that. He's almost like a Rocky Balboa as well, isn't he?
Yeah, literally.
I think though, no disrespect to Joseph Jr., I think if you are a light heavyweight contender, such as someone like Joshua Buatsi, you're probably going to most likely go down that route to win the world title, because the other champions, like Bivol and Beterbiev, like they're such hard fights to win. Like Beterbiev is an absolute monster. You got dynamite in both hands. Bivol, the master boxer, he's not the best to watch, but he's so advanced in his skill set. It's so hard to win rounds against him, and all of a sudden he's done you on points. So I think Joseph Jr. realistically has probably the most flaws in his game. Is that fair to say, Josh?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think if I was Buatsi, I wouldn't be licking my lips so much. But where he's at, I think that is probably the most realistic route to get to a world title level. Because, like you said, the others in that division it's a very scary division. So we know Craig Richards is due to fight Bivol, so maybe that might give us a bit more insight of how he does there. But I think that's probably the weakest title available at the moment for those coming up which is quite a stacked division now, light heavyweight. So it'd be interesting.
And don't get me wrong, although Joe Smith, we regard him as probably the weakest champion, that's still a bloody hard fight to win as well. Like, you have three solid champions in Beterbiev, Bivol, and Joe Smith now. Like, that is such an underrated division. Absolute killers, a lot of them.
No disrespect to Joseph Jr. He's a warrior, but I think just levels wise, like you said, just boxing from Bivol, and then just the sheer, I don't know, he's just a freak, Beterbiev, isn't he? So I think that's probably the route people will sort of go for if they can.
But, however, if Craig Richards manages to beat Dimitri Bivol, if he walks him onto a punch somehow and takes him out, Josh Buatsi will 100% be taking on Craig Richards for the WBA title. There's not going to be any kind of, a kind of level ladder. They're going to kind of give him other fights to give him experience to take on a world champion. They will make the gamble kind of like when Charles Martin won the world title. They threw AJ in there straight away, took the risk. And that's no disrespect to Craig Richards, but it is a very winnable fight for Josh Buatsi if Craig Richards is to be successful.
Well, I mean, like Craig Richards only his last fight was winning the British title. So
exactly.
For him to go in with Bivol, I can't fault him. Fair play to him. He's saw an opportunity and gone for it. So, he's the Brit, got to back the Brit going there. But it'd be a very hard night for him, I think.
I think just going back to Joe Smith Jr., I think the Americans will be delighted as well that they have a champion in that division, and the Eastern Europeans haven't completely taken over the division yet.
Definitely.
Anyway, we'll see. Hopefully the Brits can get in there. Hopefully Craig Richards does the business. If not, maybe Buatsi will climb up the ladder, or someone like Lyndon Arthur or Anthony Yard. We've got some good light heavyweights in this country.
Definitely. It's the UK domestic level is kind of like European level anyway. So the top of that tree. So it'll be interesting.
Not to forget Callum Johnson as well, who is getting on a bit, but a solid contender nevertheless. Gave a good account of himself against Beterbiev, who is
right.
in my opinion, the strongest champion at the moment.
Yeah, agreed.
We're going to move on now to the main discussion. Probably the biggest fight in Wales in all combat sports this year, it's fair to say. It's definitely the biggest fight for Wales that's going to happen this year. We've got Demetrius Andrade, the WBO champion, will be defending his world title against Liam Williams in the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida. Andrade, he's recently fought Luke Keeler. It's fair to say he was levels above him.
Yeah.
He also fought, who was the Polish guy called again? I forgot his name now.
Sulecki.
He's looked very good in most of his fights recently. Do you think he's avoiding that division for a reason, Josh?
I think not necessarily for how good he is. I think just watching him, just sort of coming up to this fight, I've been looking into him, just his style a bit more than I had before. He's just such a unorthodox and sometimes wild and difficult style. I just don't think anyone can work out how good he really is. So I'm not sure whether it's the case of just how good he is. I think people he's such an unknown quantity, and he hasn't necessarily mixed it at there's no benchmark to how good he is. I think it's hard for people I think he's just a risk to a lot of people. So avoided probably, but not necessarily just because he's for his skill per se.
I think people who really know their boxing and study boxing know how good Demetrius Andrade is. But I think another problem with Andrade is he hasn't really got that amazing coming out win either. Like, for example, like Joe Calzaghe had Jeff Lacey. Demetrius Andrade hasn't really got that opponent yet. Although he's beaten some good fighters, that is known on his record that was a fantastic win, if that makes sense, at the elite level. So it's really hard for a benchmark to see how good Demetrius Andrade is. And I'm not sure even if Liam Williams is that person. I like to think he is, as a fellow Welshman, and hopefully and could potentially beat him. But if you look at pound for pound, kind of the guys he's fought from light middle to middle, there's no outstanding name, is there?
Yeah, definitely. I think even if he beats Williams, it's almost like, oh, who was he anyway? So I think he's been bubbling for a long time, waiting for his marquee fight. So yeah.
No, definitely. Do you think his boxing ability is kind of overlooked?
Yeah, it's similar to what you said. I think when you pay close attention to it, like I said, from first seeing it, I thought it was a bit wild. But then watching his fights put together, you see how it does sort of come together in its own way. I think when he chooses to box, which is the key part of it, he is very good. I think he sometimes gets dragged into a fight where he doesn't need to be in, and then he looks a bit scrappy, a bit wild. So I think his boxing ability probably has been overlooked. But then you could say that might be relevant to his opposition he's been fighting to.
Yeah, I think casual boxing fans obviously don't really appreciate a master boxer. Demetrius Andrade, I'm going to do another comparison like I did with the Joe Smith Jr. Gatti. I think Demetrius Andrade is kind of like the middleweight Rigondo. Very good boxing ability, but casual fans just don't like watching that. Yeah. Me and you, as pure boxing fans, we love watching a really skilled boxer, and we like to see a 12-round masterclass. But unfortunately, casual fans don't. They want to see blood, sweat, and tears. And Andrade's never really given that in his career, apart from maybe the closest thing he's had is probably against Jack Kolkai in Germany, where Kolkai really pushed the pace and really didn't want to give up his title, give everything, but ultimately just wasn't good enough to beat Andrade.
Yeah.
What do you think his strengths and weaknesses are, Andrade's? We'll start with the strengths.
I think, like you said, when he chooses to box, I think he's got a very good fight IQ. He's not necessarily a knockout artist, but he's almost like a sniper. He puts these. He's not going to come and do loads of combos, but he'll throw a strong punch from a really weird angle, or he'll move just out the way and then get someone. So I think his boxing probably is his greatest strength, but alternatively, again, going to his weaknesses, it's whether he chooses to utilize that, which I think will be a big factor in not just this fight, in just a lot of the fights you'll have going forward.
Yeah, I think being over 6 foot and a southpaw as well, with hand speed like he does, footwork, and being a former Olympian, he's very well schooled. He beat Keith Thurman, I think, 3 or 4 times in the amateurs as well. And really, really difficult man to beat. And
yeah, he's very tricky.
I think it is a really hard fight for Liam Williams when you think about it. Liam Williams being the aggressor, he's really going to have to work hard, I think, to win this fight. And he's going to have to work really hard every minute, every second of every round to give Andrade problems. Weaknesses in Andrade's game, do you see any, Josh?
I think, again, it's just, I think he's got a habit of sometimes getting a bit scrappy when he doesn't need to. And I think he might have been able to get away with that with some people. But against someone like Liam Williams, who's going to come from round 1 and try to take his head off, I would not fancy him in a dogfight with Liam Williams. So I think maybe that one weakness might be if he's sort of overlooking Williams or doesn't respect him, he might get in trouble.
Yeah, I think another thing with Andrade is he kind of cruises in fights. Like a couple of fights I've seen him in, he'll win like the first 7 rounds completely easily. And then, like you said, he gets a bit carried away, tries to take more risks, and then kind of makes sloppy mistakes then when he doesn't need to. And that makes me question, is he a good brawler, inside fighter? If that makes sense. Is he just better boxing at range in all of his fights and uses his fancy footwork and his technical ability?
I've also seen that sometimes it looks like he'll have someone ready to go, but he just can't find the finishing punch. So some of the fights, I feel like he's been taken to points before when, whereas I can think someone else would probably be able to put their opponent out. So I'm not sure whether he has that killer instinct that some of the other middleweights have.
Yeah, the fight I forgot to mention, it was in the back of my head, but I couldn't quite pull it off at the time. But you just reminded me, that fight I can't remember this guy's name. It's the African boxer who
that's right.
He knocked him down like 7 times and just couldn't get him out of there. He was meant to fight Billy Joe Saunders originally, but ended up fighting this guy because he was undefeated, unknown quantity, and it was like the biggest shutout I've ever seen. But you couldn't get rid of him. Yeah,
that was the vacant WBO. That's for the title. So when it was vacant. But yeah, he had him down plenty of times, and that guy was, in reality, he was tough, but he had no business being in there. I'd heard he had 1 week notice coming from Namibia, so in reality, he had 3 days to actually prepare, and he's just turned up, and he'd knocked him down one time. He's already in the corner, jumping and dancing, thinking that he's won. I just think when you've got someone like that there to put him down that many times, you've got to be able to put them away, I think. When it gets to that elite level. So again, it's hard to gauge because he hasn't had that marquee fight yet, but I do get a sense that he doesn't have as much of a killer instinct as some of the other fighters do.
Just going back to that guy from Namibia, fuck me, he was tough, wasn't he? He kept coming back for more, didn't he? With that little ability he had. He wanted it, didn't he? It's fair to say he wanted that bad.
Literally, and even the ref was like, "Are you sure you're fine?" He's just nodding. So fair play to him. Shout out to him.
I've never seen a guy take a beating so much and keep coming back for more. It was honestly crazy.
Fair play to him.
I think the main weakness really for Andrade is not really so much technical ability. I think it's more how hard of a sell he is. He's not, for casual fans, like I've already stated, he isn't the best to watch entertainment-wise. And the problem is he's just kind of too good for his own good.
Yeah, definitely.
He's not the most entertaining. He makes his opponents look silly. And the thing is, if he tries to take risks and brawl with his opponents, that's when he allows himself to kind of potentially get beat, and he can't afford to do that at this level. Although it's great seeing these knockdowns and these concussive punches, highlight reel things. You only get one career, and he's not going to lose for the sake of entertaining the people. That's his problem.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think we'll probably touch on it later on, but I think that's something that might be a big factor in this fight if he gets it wrong.
We're going to move on now to our Welsh compatriot, Mr. Liam Williams.
Yeah, fellow countryman.
I love watching this guy fight. I really love how he's rebuilt himself in middleweight. I like middleweight, gave it a good go, got to world level, I would say, but fell short against Liam Smith in a fight I really thought he was going to win. I was actually at that first fight. I was ringside for that. And I thought he was really hard done by in that fight. I'm not going to give my opinion on what I thought happened, but I thought he was hard done by.
Yeah.
And in the rematch, fair play to Liam Smith. he put on probably the best performance of his career and deserved to win that rematch. It was kind of a shutout victory.
He made the corrections for that one,
which was a shame. But then Liam Williams got his chance to fight for the British middleweight title against Mark Heffron, and he was an underdog going into that fight and completely wiped the floor with him, beating both Heffron brothers now. He also beat his brother Ronnie Heffron earlier in his career as well. And since then, he's gone from strength to strength. He's climbed up those WBO rankings and he's earned his shot, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he's looked dangerous, especially since ever since the Liam Smith defeats. I think he's on a 7 KO streak or something like that. So, since he started taking up this machine nickname, he's been just that, hasn't he? He's dangerous fighter.
Yeah, he also left Gary Lockett for Dominic Ingle. And at first I thought that was kind of a strange move because Liam Williams, he hasn't really changed into that switch hitter like the Ingle style, but he has improved and he hasn't lost the fight since turning with Dominic Ingle. And I thought really the Gary Lockett style training was kind of more suited to him. But fair play, like Dominic Ingle's really turned it around for Williams, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think it's just added another dimension to his game. I think he was always just the hard man who's just going to be in there for a scrap. Don't get me wrong. He's still very much that, but I think he does it in a different way now, and he's got more weapons in his arsenal to do so.
Definitely. I think he instead of recklessly jumping in there, trying to tear off his opponent's head, I think it's all calculated. He uses the jab a lot better. His footwork's a lot better. And I think he kind of uses that aggression to his advantage a bit more rather than kind of doing it recklessly and hoping his kind of street fighting mentality pulls him through. That makes sense.
Yeah, his pub fighting mentality sometimes, isn't
it? What do you think Liam Williams' main strengths are at the moment?
I think with Liam Williams, you just he is what he is, and he doesn't try to be anything different. His biggest strength probably is just his aggression and his relentlessness. I've never known someone to look so, considering his boxing, to look so mean just in every fight. And even after the fight, it looks like it probably takes a couple of days just to come down from wherever he's at. So I think that aggressiveness and sort of just disrespect to whatever's in front of him, he's got this sort of air of invincibility around him. So I think that's his biggest strength probably, especially going into this fight.
Yeah, I think going up to 160 has really helped his punching power as well. I think, don't get me wrong, he was quite a big puncher at 154, but those 6 pounds have really made a difference. Even to his physique, he looks a lot stronger and a lot fresher at that weight.
Yeah, because he's not necessarily a big middleweight either. He's fairly short as well. If you looked when he fought Atlantis Fox, even though he dealt with him, the size difference was pretty crazy to think that they weighed in the same. So he's clearly carries power, and he's brought it up with the speed from the lower category. So fair play to him.
I do think as well he has quite an underrated boxing ability, because I know as an amateur he was he fought for Wales. He fought in national tournaments and stuff with Wales, and he had a good amateur career. And I think he's been Welsh champion a couple of times as well. So I think people overlook, like we said earlier about Andrade, is his boxing ability overlooked? I do think Liam Williams is slightly overlooked as well. However, at the world level, if you compare him maybe to an Andrade, probably isn't as good technically.
Yeah.
But at domestic level, I do think, he's head and shoulders above the rest at middleweight at the moment.
Yeah, 100%.
What do you think Williams' weaknesses are, would you say?
I think, sort of touch on what we just said, he has an air of maybe being a bit one-dimensional in the way he comes. Like I said, since he's joined Ingle, it seems like the way he goes about it is different. But I think for someone who can keep him at bay and earn his respect, he's got a case of making a hard fight for himself, potentially.
Yeah, I think what's really kind of interesting about this fight is they're kind of both wrong for each other in a way.
Yeah.
I think more so Andrade's probably more wrong for Williams than the other way around. But I mean, to beat Andrade, I think you need to just be game. You need to kind of pressure him non-stop, work every minute, every second of every round, really make it uncomfortable for him. But I think with Williams as well, he's coming up against a 6-foot southpaw boxer, tricky feet, hard to hit. someone who's going to try and make the fight at his pace. It's a very tough fight for Williams. However, Williams is part of that Brendan Ingle, Dominic Ingle setup where there's a lot of switch hitting southpaws, a lot of tricky boxers he's probably sparring who have probably
100%.
prepared him quite well for this fight. However, they're probably not as good as Demetrius Andrade.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Looking at Liam Williams' last few victories, do you think they've prepared him well for the Andrade fight?
I think if you sort of speculate into it, you could say obviously since the Liam Smith fight, that he's been on paper, he's been at world level twice, lost both times. So on paper, you probably would just say, I think a lot of the Americans would probably be looking at thinking he's just another Brit coming over with a bit of a padded record or a bit of padded momentum. But everyone that's been put in front of him, he's been knocking out, and it's not even just getting by. He's decimating people every time he gets in there. So maybe you could argue it would have been nice to see sort of a fringe world level opponent just to sort of 100% gauge where he's at. But if he's going through the rankings and he's put himself in a mandatory spot, he must be doing something right. So has he been at this level at middleweight? No, nowhere near. But what he's been able to do at domestic and maybe just above domestic level is really get people out of there. So it'd be interesting to see where he's at.
Yeah, I think the thing is with Liam Williams' last few opponents, like you said, he has taken them out very easy at domestic level, and I think when that kind of propels you to the number one, number two spots in the WBO, you're not going to kind of say, oh wait, actually, let me just go back a few levels just so I'm prepared for Demetrius Andrade. When the opportunity comes, you've got to take it, and I think ultimately that's why he's there, and that's why. And I think with the momentum he has at the moment, I think with a lot of boxers, momentum's kind of everything. When you're on such a good win streak, you need to just take the opportunities when it comes. Yeah.
Agreed. And I think even just seeing Williams talk about the fight, he's been sort of calling for this fight for a while now. Just listening to him, it doesn't seem like there's any doubt in his mind that he's getting that title. So maybe the momentum and the confidence he's given himself coming from those losses, it might be the best time for him to do it either way.
Definitely. And I think it's interesting. He's been quoted to say recently that I've put in the work, I've got the momentum. If I'm not ready now, I never will be.
Yeah.
And I think he might think if I don't do it now, I maybe never will. So that's the interesting thing about this fight. I think he truly believes this is his time. And if he falls short, it was meant to happen.
Yeah.
And so the middleweight division is an interesting division, isn't it? At the moment, there's some solid champions. Obviously, it's Jamal Charlo. Is he the champion? Is it Jamal at the moment at the middleweight?
I couldn't tell you which one it is, but I'm not sure who decided to have Jamal and Jamal. But
you've obviously got Andrade, and you've got Golovkin, you've got Murata. So there's some good champions in that division.
Yeah,
and there's also some good contenders like Munguia, who is the beast that probably no one wants a piece of at the moment.
Yeah, I think that ties into maybe why Williams is just sort of keen to jump on the opportunity, because it's quite a stacked division and there's so much politics here and there about people fighting each other. It's rare an opportunity to get a mandatory title shot comes about, so he's got to go for it.
Definitely, for sure. If Andrade successfully defends his title against Liam Williams, is that going to do him any favors, especially if this is like a 12-round shutout or, a unanimous decision, easy victory? Where do you think Andrade goes from here?
Yeah, it's a tough one for Andrade, because sort of like I just said, with the current state of the middleweight division, even now and even beforehand, no one wants to fight him. So whether that's the case of being scared, I'm not too sure. But he's, like I said, he's such an unknown quantity. I think he's still going to struggle to have another big fight after this. So unless he decides to, I think that the sort of only big fights left for him now would be either Golovkin or maybe to move up. But it's a hard one for him because I think he's been shut out by Charlo as well. So I don't know. I don't know what's really the best case scenario for him, even if he does come through Williams.
Yeah, I think if Andrade completely scores Williams, he's just back to square one again. I really do. I think he's going to continue to be avoided, and I think he'll have no other option but to move up to super middleweight and fight for the WBO super middleweight title. I think Canelo will probably, once he's got all the marbles in that division, he's probably going to vacate the WBO instead of fighting Andrade. And then Andrade will fight, who's the British kid who's...
Zach Parker.
Zach Parker, that's the one. He's probably likely to fight Zach Parker for the vacant WBO title. No disrespect to Zach Parker, but that's a very difficult fight for Zach Parker to fight Demetrius Andrade, who wants to make history and become a freeweight world champion.
Yeah.
So
I think Andrade might have to drop the ego a bit, and I don't know what the politics involved there are with the fights, but I think with Williams now, sort of like you said, with if he just goes out there, makes it boring and wins, he's literally doing no favors for himself. But at the same time, sort of how we were talking earlier, if he gets himself, if he thinks, okay, I need to put on a show, and then finds himself, I want to take out Williams to make a statement, that is not the kind of person you want to change your style for or take a risk getting a dogfight with. So it's tough for him. He either goes in there and does probably what he needs to do and still gets no respect, or tries to knock him out and then risks losing everything. So I can't help but feel like it's a tough road for him either way.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, he's not going to just kind of make it a harder fight for himself just to kind of get those big fights out and potentially lose. He's not going to put a loss in his record because we want to see him entertain the fans, is he?
Yeah.
I mean, if I was in his position, I wouldn't do that personally. But at the same time, if he does lose, he's probably likely to get the big fights then, isn't he? Charlo will probably call him out if he loses.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So I think if Liam Williams wins the world title, what do you think happens with him? Do you think he pushes for a unification fight, or do you think they give him a few defenses first?
I think if he doesn't, if there's not a rematch clause, which there might be, because Andre being with Hearn, it tends to be a running theme. Liam Williams not supposed to win this fight, is he? So
no.
If that's not the case, it's hard to say. We'll learn a lot about Liam Williams in that fight. If he gets through Andrade and looks good doing it, then he is world level. So I'd like to see him unify, or at least go for the big fights in that division. But like we said before, there is a really stacked division, so it's hard to judge how long he would keep that belt if he tried to do multiple defenses. I think I'd like to see him, while he's on top, capitalize on the opportunities, either unify or even something like Eubank Jr., something like that. They've already got beef bubbling, something like that. Get a big fight in the UK going while he's got all the marbles.
In my opinion, it's really interesting that you brought up the potential rematch clause. I never really thought of it that way before. I think if there's a rematch clause, I think that will most likely be in the UK, because I don't think there'll be any. I don't think Andrade's the most popular in America as it is. So I think that rematch is ultimately bigger in the UK to happen. In Wales, it'd be massive, that rematch.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think if Williams was to win a rematch, if there is a clause, then there's probably no need for him to make a few easy defenses if he's beaten Andrade twice, because that shows he's definitely world level and he can have another 100%. Big fight. However, if there isn't a rematch clause, I think they will give Williams a few easy defenses. I think probably defenses in Cardiff, most likely. People who are ranked in the WBO, probably like number 5 or 6, 5th or 6th ranked, or someone like maybe like a Denzel Bentley, someone like that who's quite highly ranked. I mean, they'll give him a few soft touches to build his profile up and draw more crowds in Cardiff, because I think that's a big opening for them. Bring back the Joe Calzaghe days. Do you know what I mean? Big crowds in. They could either do like Arms Park, Cardiff Castle, maybe one day Millennium Stadium, and big unification fights. Yeah,
well, that's the dream, isn't it? We'd love to see Williams do that and bring a world title back to Wales and get a big fight going. That'd be ideal.
we are supposed to sit on the fence, but we are both Welsh and we are rooting for our man Liam Williams. We really want him to do the business. And we haven't had big fights in Wales for a long time. You know, we have had AJ headlining the Millennium Stadium, but it's just not quite the same when you have a Welshman defending their titles.
We need the patriotism, don't we?
Yeah, 100%, mate. I think it's very interesting. You mentioned Liam Williams and Chris Eubank Jr. I think that fight makes a lot of sense if Liam Williams comes through this.
Yeah, just having a flick through the rankings before just sort of in preparation for this. You know, Eubank is potentially, once he gets, I think he's got a fight. I think it's on the Chisora card in May.
Yeah, Marcus Morrison.
Yeah, Marcus Morrison.
Return of the Mac.
Yeah, that's that's just a tune-up fight, isn't it? Just to get his profile back, get some ring, or supposed to be anyway. So he's due to be to go for a vacant title soon. So, you know, if Williams, assuming he doesn't have to get the rematch clause, is looking for a unification, what bigger than that than him and Eubank for 2 titles?
Yeah, definitely. And I think if Eubank Jr., he's obviously ranked number 1 or 2, isn't he, with WBA for Murata's title. I think if he beats, I think he could beat Murata. I think Murata's probably arguably the weakest champ in that division, I would say, unless Golovkin's aged dramatically. I think personally, I would fancy my chances mostly against Murata if I was one of the top boys in that division. And I think, Liam Williams as Eubank Jr. could either be for a unification fight, or if Liam Williams is successful, I think Eubank Jr. might think, well, hang on a minute, do I fight Liam Williams for the belt in the UK for more money, or do I play the long game, win a world title in, is it Japan? I think Murata's from.
Yeah, Japan.
Yeah, or do I go to Japan on away soil? You know, play the long game, probably take less money, probably not in a stadium fight, and then bring both belts into the party. It's interesting one, really.
I think Eubank's been in public hiding for too long now, so I think he probably knows that he needs to win the public back now and stop looking like a paper champ. So
I'm not sure.
That'd be a great fight, wouldn't it?
I'm not sure if Eubank Jr. has ever really won the public, though, has he? He's been, I mean,
in the sense of believing in him. I think a lot of people, since he lost to in the WBSS, he didn't. He's just sort of gone. What's he been doing really? It's been 2-3 years since he lost to Grove. So I couldn't tell you who he's fought. So
yeah, I think Eubank Jr. has kind of done the kind of Mayweather thing, whereas like kind of get people to dislike you to watch you lose. Yeah. Fair play to him. Like, he's made good money, Eubank Jr. through boxing. Yeah, he's done well. He's played the villain. His dad did the same, to be fair to him. But yeah, I mean, when you're 30, 31, I think when there's a big British domestic world title fight, you've got to take that opportunity when it comes, surely.
Yeah, maybe I worded it wrong. I think it's more of like a respect thing, as opposed, you can be a villain and still have respect, can't you? So yeah, he was never likable, was he? But I think he's got to earn his stripes now, and considering the game he talks, it'd be good to see him in a world title fight. And, if it can be with Williams in Cardiff, happy days.
Yeah, it's strange with Eubank Jr., like fighting the Marcus Morrison, like such a setback, really, considering when he fought Korobov at world level about a year and a half ago. I know he's been inactive, but I mean, at his age, he wants big fights, really, doesn't he, at this stage of his career?
Yeah, interesting division. So we'll only know after this fight happens to see what the dynamics change.
Definitely, for sure. Right, Josh, we're going to go to prediction. What do you predict happens in the world title fight between Demetrius Andrade and Liam Williams?
It's a hard one, isn't it? I think my head is saying it's Andrade's fight to lose here. I think the best Andrade, or the boxer Andrade who picks his shots, takes his time, makes it awkward, so upsets his rhythm. I think that's a hard night work for Liam Williams. So I do think that it's Andrade's fight to lose, and probably because of that, I think just the sort of level he's fought at for a bit longer, I would probably go for a points decision for Andrade. But, at the same time, my heart for Williams to go out there and knock him out, that'd be ideal too. But I just think there's not enough for me to to discredit Andrade winning this.
I'm going to go the other way. Our man Liam Williams is going to be a new world champion for Wales, which I can't wait about. And the reason why I think this is because I think Andrade thinks he's levels above Liam Williams. I think he probably thinks he's fighting another Luke Keeler. No disrespect to Luke Keeler, but I think he's going to go in there, try and make a statement. I think people in his team are going to say to him, listen, like, you're in your 30s now. You need the big fights. So go out there, blow this guy away. And I think that's going to work in Liam Williams' favour. And I think Liam Williams 100%. Is going to walk him onto a shot, throw a big left hook. And I think it's going to be a highlight reel knockout for Liam Williams in about round 6.
Hopefully that's the way. I think I'm with you there. I think, like I was saying, the best Andrade, I think, is really hard for Williams if he can make it awkward, make it weird, and upset his rhythm. But I'm with you there. I think Andrade, even just seeing how he's speaking about Williams coming up to the fight, he sort of already feels like he is a bit of a nobody, and he's overlooking him. If he's going to treat him like a Luke Keeler, he's in trouble because he's coming there to win. And like I said, he genuinely believes he's going to do that. So I'd love to see it.
Yeah, definitely. And although Andrade was levels above Luke Keeler, so was Liam Williams. I really do believe that. I think you put Liam Williams in with Luke Keeler, he wants to floor over Keeler 100%, and probably does it in more devastating fashion. I know styles make fights, but you saw what happened with who was that fighter they both fought? The big lanky American dude,
Atlantis Fox.
Like I said, styles make fights, but you put him in with both of those guys, Liam Williams probably does it more viciously, and I think the same would happen to Luke Keeler 100%.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that's a good way to end this now. Thank you for listening to episode 5. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at @Y_C for clinch. Also, subscribe to us on our YouTube channel and also follow us on Spotify at A Clinch Fight Podcast. Thank you very much. See you later, Josh.
Cheers, mate.